Hi, welcome everyone to Squeezing the Juice. Today we have a special guest, Jess Wu, our very good friend. And we are so excited to have you, Jess. Thanks for being on the show with us today.
I'm happy to be here. Yay.
Awesome. So we're going to get started with a check-in question. Ash, do you have a check-in question for us?
Yep, I do. Check-in question is, if you could only use one sauce for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Sweet or savory?
You get to answer the question however you like.
And it's the only sauce that can go on any food.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my first thought was like soy sauce, but then my second thought was chocolate sauce.
Those are very different things.
I know.
I would do like a hybrid.
I'd put chocolate sauce on all of my dessert, and then I'd put soy sauce on all of my non-sweet items.
So if you could only choose one, you'd have to put chocolate sauce on your sushi?
Mm-hmm.
You answered that so matter of fact.
All right. That's a great answer. I'm going to have to go with soy sauce because that's just like staple. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how would I eat sushi and like pot stickers? All right. That's my answer. Soy sauce.
That's your answer? I'm stressed. I always ask these questions and I'm excited to hear from others about. And then when it comes to me, I'm like, I can't decide. I'm going to say barbecue sauce and cocoa aminos, which are pretty much a version of soy sauce without the wheat.
What are cocoa aminos?
It's the best. It's like,
you know what that is?
Yeah.
Man, I'm out of the loop.
All
right. Yeah. Can you give me in a nutshell what a cocoa amino is?
Go ahead.
No, I would say it's the gluten-free version of soy sauce.
I thought that was like tamari sauce.
Maybe there's multiple versions, but cocoa aminos is that, savory soy sauce taste.
Is it made from cocoa beans?
Coconut.
Oh, cocoa. Okay, got it. Okay. That makes sense. All right, cool. Great check-in question.
We learned so much already.
Is this a food podcast?
Yeah.
It's going to turn into one. All right, cool. Well, let's jump right into it. So the way that we know Jess is obviously Ashley and I are the co-directors of the Skate Like a Girl SF Bay Area chapter, and Jess joined us as a volunteer. And actually, we first met you as an artist. And since then, through Kristen Ebeling. So Kristen had connected with you. I think you had done some art for the Skate Witches. And then Kristen was like, you should connect with Jess. Jess is in the Bay. So we met. And then ever since then, you've been so generously contributing your amazing talent to all of our, like everything, like our flyers, our t-shirts, our merch, like a lot of the products that we sell to fundraise. So many of you guys might know Jess through their art, which is also on, Meow Skateboards. Like we did a collaboration deck. And where else? I'm trying to think where else people may have seen your art.
Mostly on that kind of stuff.
Okay.
All the Skate Like a Girl merch and maybe my zines.
Your zine, yeah. Mixed rice zines. So we're definitely going to talk about that. But I guess before we even go there, I guess, can you just share with everyone sort of like your, not life story, but
background.
Yeah, your background. Like, where did you grow up and, how did you end up kind of pursuing art and skateboarding and the things that you ended up pursuing?
Yeah. So I grew up in Taipei, Taiwan. That's where most of my family lives. And I moved to the US in 2010. And since then, I've basically been in California. I first started out in Southern California. And I was studying environmental studies and art there. I took a bunch of art classes, and I worked in the art department as like my work study job, and have always been really interested in art because my mom is an artist, and she was the one who basically taught me how to draw, and I have all these memories of her. Like we would draw little things together. She would fill in half of it and I'd fill in the other half.
So cool.
Yeah, she's such an inspiration. And yeah, my family has always been really like supportive of art and art making and craftsmanship and all of that. And so I think because of that, it's always come naturally for me to try and like make things myself or kind of wrap my head around how things work. So I eventually moved to the Bay Area after I graduated in 2014, and I've been working in art education and in horticulture. And then so I've just been doing art on the side. I started making zines and doing illustrations and doing commissions here and there.
Awesome.
That's
And then how about skateboarding? Like, how did that kind of enter your life? Or
Well, I've been rollerblading ever since I was a kid, maybe third grade. And there was a skate park near my school that my mom would take me to. And rollerblading was like really cool in the late 90s and early 2000s. So when I go to the skate park, there was like half the people were rollerblading, half the people were skateboarding.
this was in Taipei?
This was in Taipei, yeah. And sadly, the skate park no longer exists. But it was really awesome. I have all these great memories there. And I remember actually I was I was in one of the skate competitions, and they had interviewed me for the TV report and everything. And
That's
it was
awesome.
really cool. Like that was such a good time when skateboarding and rollerblading was like pals. And then eventually skateboarding like rose to a higher level, and we're cooler than you. But
What year
anyway,
was that? What year
I
was
think that the competition was probably like 1999,
Wow.
1998 or
Okay.
something. But anyway, so I kind of stopped rollerblading when I grew out of it in late and middle school, high school. And when I moved to California, I don't know, I just felt like this sense of wanting to be a kid again. Like like I was growing up so fast. I was living on my own, and just like things that I loved as a child was rooting me. And so I started rollerblading around school. And then when I moved to up here to the Bay, I started like doing a more aggressive inline, so going to skate parks, skating street and stuff. And I was like the only blader, obviously. And I was trying to like kind of create the skate like a girl version, but rollerblading, and it completely failed. um and so I was like, okay, I'm gonna try skateboarding, because I had done it here and there as a kid because I also surfed, and like I had a skateboard, I skated around my house, but I never got as into it as rollerblading because it didn't feel as natural, because your body is like you're like walking instead of like
Yeah.
sideways. Anyway, so I started skateboarding probably in 2015. And yeah, just taking it slow, trying to relearn how to push, and then eventually like all of these things came into place. Like Unity skateboarding happened. I started volunteering with Skate Like a Girl, and and I started my skateboarding zine, and there are all these other skate zines, and yeah, it just all fell together like I was meant to skateboard.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I have a question, Jess. When you moved here without your parents originally, is that right? When you
Yeah.
moved to the US?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a huge undertaking. So what was your experience like coming to the US or coming to California specifically, right? LA? And then
Uh-huh.
finding skateboarding, kind of navigating all that. Who were you skating with? You're like rollerblading. It sounded like you were kind of rolling around.
It's always been a solo thing.
Okay.
Skating's always been solo, even as a kid. I mean, like I would skate around with my elementary school friends, but when I go to the skate park, I was like just doing my thing. And yeah, and then when I came to the Bay, I also just skated solo, and it was just always something that I cared about for myself, and I didn't really care about like who was around me, and it felt really good to get out there and just do what I love. And I have slightly an obsessive personality. So I kind of got obsessed with skating, like both rollerblading and skateboarding. Yeah, I think what kind of set skateboarding apart from rollerblading was the sense of community, because I started doing it with other people and realizing how much more powerful it is to share like a common interest with other folks. So, yeah. That's why I love skateboarding so much, even though it's like way harder and more frustrating.
And like ultimately there was other people around, so like it sounded like that's what ended up making it just like something that you can continue doing.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like what you find with like music and art as well? Or I guess music might kind of rely more on other people, but because you're in a band too, right?
Yeah, well, our band we no longer really play too many shows, but we're still friends. But
You're on a hiatus.
Yeah.
Are you retired?
Retired?
I'm retired from that band, but I still play music by myself and just jam with friends.
Yeah, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. Was it like, what was it like growing up in Taipei being like mixed race, right? So your mom is Chinese and your dad is
My
which
mom
one?
is Taiwanese.
That's right.
And yeah, we could go into no, we don't have to go into the politics.
She's Taiwanese. That's important.
Yes,
that we
it's important because my grandma's
correctly
side,
identify.
they've
Yeah.
been in Taiwan for a long time, and so
Gotcha.
I'm of Aboriginal descent and Chinese descent,
Gotcha.
so equal Taiwan. But
There's a difference.
Yes.
we won't need to go into a deep hole, but
yeah. So yeah, my mom is Taiwanese and my dad is American. He grew up in Hawaii. What was your question?
I guess just like what was it
yeah.
like? Because I feel like even now when so my parents are from Taiwan, but my grandparents are from China.
Mm-hmm.
But even now when I go back to visit, I don't really see a ton of people that are mixed ethnicities.
Mm-hmm.
So was that different for you, or did you grow up because you went to like an international school?
So I grew up going to public school, which is like local speaking Mandarin and Taiwanese. And then in high school I switched to going to an international school. So I feel like in a way my childhood was sort of like split into these two worlds because I grew up super local. I barely would speak English only at home with my dad, but I would speak Mandarin and Taiwanese with all my friends, all of my relatives. And then in high school, it kind of flipped, like late middle school, high school, it flipped. And I started speaking more and more English because at school, that was the main language.
Mm-hmm.
And I had expressed interest in going to school in the United States. So I was sort of like working towards that. And yeah, it's sort of weird now as an adult because when people ask me where I'm from, I'm like, I'm not really sure. Like I grew up in Taiwan, now I live in the Bay. I could say I'm from both. I'm not really sure. And I'm like, racially, ethnically, I'm made up of like both colonizer and colonized. So I don't really like belong anywhere. So I kind of have to like create my own space, I guess. But yeah, growing up in Taiwan, I was really sort of aware of that, but also not. Like as a kid, I was like so local, as soon as I would start speaking, people would be like, what? Because they wouldn't expect me to be able to speak their language, even though I look differently. And, a lot of Taiwanese people thought that I looked so different. I looked, different from the other kids. And then when I came to the States, people were like, you look totally Asian. And, it's just people's perspective. And
that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, why are you telling me about how I look? And why are you commenting on my looks?
You're like, I didn't ask.
Yeah.
And then you were just back at home, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess I don't know if you call it home, but you were just back in Taiwan.
I would call it home for sure. Yeah.
Back at home. Awesome. And how was that visiting?
It was really great. I love Taiwan. It's like it holds a very special place in my heart, and I've been kind of like rebuilding a relationship with it as an adult, and it's really special, and it surprises me every time I go back.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I encourage everyone to visit Taiwan. That's what I was just
highly
gonna say.
Encourage,
especially if you like food.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I feel like what was I gonna say? I was gonna ask it as you've started to like rebuild this new relationship to Taiwan. I'm curious, like, is there anything newly that you're like falling in love with Taiwan that you haven't maybe before, or just like what is?
Yeah, I feel like when I was younger, in late middle school, high school, I was really excited to move to the States. And there was like so much about America that seemed so amazing to me. and I felt like I had so much more opportunity. Like I felt like I could be myself because I was a queer kid, and I felt like I couldn't be queer in Taiwan. And I hid it from everyone. I was totally closeted. And I felt like if I moved to the States, I could be myself. And so I was sort of like rejecting my, my home for a really long time. And now that I'm an adult and I'm become myself and I feel really comfortable in my own skin, and I go back to Taiwan, I'm sort of, that's what I mean by I'm like rebuilding that relationship, because I was trying to reject it for so long. But now it's a place that like I really, really, truly love. And Taiwan has changed. It's like super queer.
It
Like,
is.
That's
They
awesome.
almost didn't they almost pass the law? Like they were super close to like voting that
I
gay
mean,
marriage would be legal.
Yeah, it's basically legal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought I had read something about like they were like one of the first Asian countries to push towards legalizing gay marriage.
Yeah.
Wow,
It
that's awesome.
it is legalized now.
It is? Okay,
it
cool.
is.
Like,
all right.
Wow.
I'm not on I'm not up to date on the
Yeah.
current news. But that's awesome. Yeah, and like I think a few times I was there was pride going on, and it was like just it's so funny how it's such a small little country could actually be like more progressive in the scope of, an entire region of countries,
Yeah, it's super cool. This time when I visited, I went to so many bookstores that had like queer content, and I saw so many like visibly queer couples holding hands. And I was riding the subway, the MRT, and there was like a young teen getting on the train who like turned around and they had like a rainbow pin on their backpack. It's just like, it's so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Such a contrast to like the rest of Asia. I mean, we guess it's just like, again, like this is probably a whole nother episode, but
Yeah.
just it having the roots from both China and Japan, actually, because Japan ruled Taiwan for like 50 years.
They did. Yeah.
Like when my parents were kids, like it was under Japanese rule and then it switched over. So it's just really interesting. But yeah, it's interesting how like Taiwan is such a unique place, and it's like this little island in the scope of the world, and it seems to have now like it's like an epicenter to sort of unique culture, whether it's like skateboarding or queer culture or whatever else. So that's just, I don't know, I find that stuff just interesting.
Yeah, we can have a whole podcast about how much we love Taiwan.
Well, round 2, and we have you on again.
Yeah.
We'll just be all about that.
Ashley needs to go, then you can, chime in on.
I know. We keep talking. This keeps coming up. Like, we need a Taiwan
skate trip.
Yeah. We should all go.
Surfing's big out there too. Is that right?
Yeah.
It's big. Yeah, there was just a competition this past weekend.
I almost feel like surfing might be bigger than skateboarding just because it's literally an island. So there's definitely like beach culture and, especially the southern parts. But anyways, cool. So I guess moving on, can you, I mean, we kind of started already talking about this, but are you down to share with us just sort of like your personal journey in terms of gender identity and really sort of becoming the version of you that you love and feel comfortable, as yourself?
Yeah. Okay. From the beginning.
I mean, like, when did you know as like a young person that you were queer? Or like, what was that like?
Yeah.
And having to hide that, and I think
it's funny with gender. I never thought about it too much. Like my parents raised me to like be whatever, and I gravitated towards, people would say traditionally masculine things like sports. I love like wearing baggy clothes. I wasn't traditionally feminine in the way that a lot of other like girls were, and I was assigned female at birth. And it wasn't until after puberty, like high school time, when I felt like I knew that I was a little bit different, aka like not straight and not cisgendered. But I felt really uncomfortable with it for a lot of reasons, mostly because the place I grew up in was a little bit more conservative at the time. And the household that I grew up in were, I don't know. My family has been really accepting. Like once I've told them about how I identify, and they've seen me go through several different relationships with people who identify as like women or non-binary, and they've come a long way. But at the time when I was 18, when I told them that I'm not straight, it was something we had to work through really hard. And it I feel like they're actually pretty open people, but we just lived in a place where there wasn't much media on queer people, and there just weren't as many queer people like telling their stories as much as now,
Right.
And I didn't really have too many role models to look up to, so I felt like I had to kind of like hide that part of myself. So yeah, in high school, I actually tried to be like super feminine. Like if you look at pictures of me, I had like long flowing hair. I would wear like dresses sometimes, and just like more tight fitting clothing, and I felt like pretty uncomfortable in that. But that's I
Is
don't
that
know.
because you were trying to kind of like fit into the
Yeah,
like
I
ideal?
was trying to fit in. I was trying to be cool because like all the cool kids, dressed a certain way, whatever. But at the same time, I still like held a piece of myself. I was like the captain of the softball team. I could wear like my sporty clothes, and if I didn't do sports in high school, I probably would have been like way more emo. And like I was able to like get out all my aggression and feelings like through sports, which was
So
really
real.
cool.
That's awesome.
Which is funny because now when I tell people like I was a captain of the softball team, it's like the gayest thing ever. I don't even know why is softball like the gay sport? Whatever. Anyway, yeah. So, yeah, and then in terms of my like gender expression, I feel like over the years I become more and more like comfortable, and mainly in terms of my like clothing expression, I just care more about comfort and over anything else. And yeah, I always felt really weird, like I in terms of like my chest, since I was assigned female at birth, I had breasts, and they always just I felt like uncomfortable with them, and I never thought about surgery until I moved to the Bay Area. And like people from all over the world travel to San Francisco just to get gender affirming surgery. And so there are so many people who have had this type of surgery, which is top surgery. And I just talked to so many people about their experiences. I had like very, very close friends and family, chosen family, who have had it. And it just became really accessible to me. And the idea of it would make me like glow and make me really happy to think about. So I eventually was able to get the surgery after like jumping through many hoops for several years. And it's funny because, you know, a lot, I would sit in the doctor's room and the doctor would be like, so like, are you taking any hormones? Like what are you transitioning? I'm like, no, I'm just getting top surgery because I want to. Like, I'm not female to male. I'm non-binary. I'm genderqueer, and this is just something I want. So I think that, yeah, within like non-binary identity, I feel like more and more people are talking about like surgeries and transitioning, and how like some people don't want to transition. Like you can get surgery but not identify as transgender or non-binary. There's like so many ways to be. But yeah. So
What were some of the biggest like challenges, or maybe like fear? Like, was it scary? Like, what were some of the things that were like obstacles, I guess?
I honestly, for me, I was like so ready to do it. I wasn't afraid of the surgery in any way, and I knew this is exactly what I wanted. I think the only obstacle was maybe like financial, and I had to find a surgeon that would do it. Like some people, um, out of pocket, you have to pay like 10 grand plus for
Wow.
surgery. I didn't have that kind of money. And so I had to, and at the time I was receiving Medi-Cal, which is the government aid health insurance. And they had all
Doesn't
these
cover.
rules and they couldn't cover it. some people are able to, but I wasn't able to get it covered. So my partner said, let's get married, because if we're married, then I can add you to my health insurance plan at my work.
Wow.
So that was really amazing. And I am like forever grateful for my partner for that. And yeah, I got the surgery through Kaiser, and the copay was $100.
Wow.
And like, I mean, we can have a whole other podcast about healthcare and how that's another thing. Taiwan has national healthcare.
That is true.
I'm moving. Let's go.
Yeah, but that is like probably one of the biggest obstacles of anyone who wants to get any type of gender affirming surgery. Like once you decide it's what you want, that's the next thing, is like, how am I going to pay for it?
Right.
Yeah. And, other obstacles are maybe telling family, telling friends. I felt really comfortable telling all my friends, but my like blood relatives don't know that I had the surgery, and I did make the decision not to tell them for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel okay with it at this point, but maybe it'll come up later.
Totally. And have you had that conversation with your parents at all? Do you see that as important, or does it matter?
I think it would be super cool if I could tell them that I identify as transgender and non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm just slightly traumatized from when I told them I was gay, like 10 years ago. And they're cool with it now. Like they were super supportive of my marriage and my relationship with my partner, Mai. And, I can just totally be myself with them now, but I feel like I don't want to like open the floodgate again.
Yeah.
And there's just, so much time has passed, and like I have my relationship with my parents, and I don't want to say if I told them it would like completely change our relationship, but I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice for maybe people who don't live in the Bay Area and don't have a community and resources and are maybe where you were at, when you were a little bit younger? Any sort of like, not advice, but anything that you could share with them that might make a difference? Like, what do you wish someone could have told you, or you could have told yourself? Like,
Yeah. I think definitely nowadays with the surge of internet and social media, there's a lot more ways to connect to people who have similar ideas or similar experiences. So I would just urge those people to like reach out and, find those people online if they have access to the internet. And if not, then just like write your feelings, or like somehow find some sort of outlet, whether that's like music or something physical, anything to sort of like
express it, get it
express.
out.
Yeah.
Is that what art and music and skateboarding was for you? Because it seems like those are all like, you literally are so like talented, and you've pursued and put in the time and energy for like all these creative outlets. Usually someone has like one, they're like, oh, I skateboard, or oh, like, oh, I play music, or oh, I'm an artist, and you're like all of them, which is why it's like so cool, So do you think that that's kind of why one of those, it became outlets for just being able to get what was inside out?
Yeah, definitely outlets, and definitely ways to connect to other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like therapy in some way. I mean,
Yes.
a lot of people talk about like skateboarding therapy. Like for you, was that the relationship to all these different mediums of creative expression?
Yeah, definitely.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I think like you just said, Kim, I agree. I think those are all modes of self-expression. And I think just one thing the things I admire about you most is like your inquiry and your constant sort of navigation, exploration of self. And I think like you just shared earlier, for folks that maybe don't have access to resources or those communities right now, continuing to like search and explore who you are and what that means. And I see you do that on your skateboard. I'm sure you do it with your music, and I see you do that with your art. And I just absolutely commend you, because it's not always an easy thing, but I do see that you take that on, and you take it on so powerfully. And I just so appreciate that about you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like when we met, like the thing that stood out, if someone was like, "Oh, tell me about Jess," like even when I just was getting to know you, what like I would say is that it's like, I don't, I'm just trying to figure out, like, it's like you're grounded and you like know like what you're about and who you are, but like not in a cocky way, obviously, like no ego, just like this is who I am and these are the forms of expression. So everything from your art, your skateboarding, to like the way, your style of fashion, like all of it. So to me it's like you're so sure of like who you are and you are able to express it in ways that other people can, observe or admire, like art or like listen to music, or even like I always like watching you skate because there's no one else skating like you. So and it's like inspiring to me because it's not like I've been around pro skaters for so long and it's not as inspiring because I'm like, I'll never be able to do that. But you're always about, to me, you're always about like style and creativity on your board. It's not about doing like the gnarliest, like, let me huck myself down like 20 stairs.
I'd love to do that, but just not possible. I think if I started skating when I was 5 years old, maybe, but when you start skating at 24, it's a little harder.
Yeah. There's some responsibilities you have to take into consideration.
It's real.
Yeah.
Cool.
But like going back to that, I feel like, it seems like I've got myself figured out, all this stuff, but I'm like constantly still figuring myself like day after day, like with gender stuff, I was like, when I was a kid, I'm like, I'm a tomboy. And then in high school, I was like, I'm a weird blend of like tomboy, but also like girly. And I want to try and be cool, to, being like, screw all of that. I'm just going to be like a weirdo and, blah, blah, blah. And, and like after getting top surgery, I felt like, wow, like, why have I been rejecting femininity for so long? And so now I feel like I just love like feminine things all over again. And I love like masculine things all over again, and sort of like a blend of everything. And, people say that our like body cells regenerate every 10 years. So exactly 10 years ago, I graduated from high school. And that was like a really crucial moment where I graduated, I moved away from home, I came out, I started building like my own life and like creating a little space for myself and learning about myself. And now it's been like exactly 10 years later. Like I just had my birthday a couple days ago. So I think maybe that's why I've been thinking so much about it. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. We're always changing, and we can set goals for ourselves and things like that. But I think that's the beauty of life, is things always change and you just go with the flow. And
what was the outcome like what you expected, or were there any unexpected kind of experiences? I mean, obviously what you just shared, but anything else that after surgery that was surprising to you, both mentally and or physically? Like, I know there was a period of recovery, right, and rehab.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? And how about now? Like, are you fully able to do everything that you were?
Yeah, I think physically I am not 100% yet. I thought I was. I started doing jujitsu classes, and then I like pulled a bunch of muscles in my chest that I didn't realize I could pull, because I haven't been using that part of my body for a while. But I would say, like, emotionally, like in my body, I feel so much more comfortable. Like getting dressed in the morning is so easy. I just like put on a shirt and I'm good. And I'm still finding my personal style. Like I still am interested in like switching things up all the time, and that's just me. But at the same time, I would say, like, before I got surgery, I felt that like there were so many things that surgery could cure or like make better. And I would say that it didn't, because those are rooted traumas that I need to like deal with, you know, in other ways. And like just changing my body isn't going to change that. And that was a surprise to me. But also not surprising at all, because that's life.
That's awesome. Well, I think that's like it. What I'm hearing there is like that was one step towards just like growing and evolving. And I kind of feel like for everyone, whether people can relate to what you are experiencing or if it's some sort of different, challenge or evolution, that like we aren't really done until we die. So
Totally.
like it's
Yeah.
a step towards, and like it's almost like, even though was that like disappointing to you, or just knowing that having that awareness is actually, I think it sounds like it's empowering, because then you can look forward and say, okay, like what else is next in terms
Mm-hmm.
of healing or evolving or growing or transforming or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah.
I agree. I think that part of what we don't acknowledge as like a society or even a human race is that like my idea is that humans are actually a lot more fluid than we allow them to be or talk about them being. And I think that, like you just talked about, we're not done till we're dead. Right. And so just in that constant state of like exploring, and you're never done with that. And I think
Mm-hmm.
we don't create a lot of room, especially at young ages, for us to know that we're allowed to explore and we're allowed to ask, like,
Yeah.
what do we want, and I think even just finding out what it means to be comfortable in your body first and foremost before before you can be comfortable with you, like, can you actually go and be self-expressed, right? And so I hear
Mm-hmm.
that's part of like your journey as well as all of ours, and just really complicating like what is the human experience and what are the combinations of humans that we get to be, and it's really limitless, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
being able to give up, worried about what people are going to think, this and that takes a lot, and it really depends on the cards that you're dealt, right? When you're hitting the ground running in this
Mm-hmm.
thing called the world. So I think, again, once the stories that you're sharing here, like, one, they definitely inspire me to like continue to explore that and remind ourselves that we're never done, right? And can keep playing with that, and it doesn't always have to feel like a burden. Yeah.
I have a question. Um, did any of the physical aspects of like not having breasts inform like the reason to like have surgery in terms of like sports or skateboarding or anything like that, because I don't know, I don't have big boobs, but I have a lot of friends who like do, and it's like a chat, like when I was like in high school playing sports, like it makes a difference, like it affects your ability to like perform, or like maybe
It
there's pain
does. Yeah.
involved in like neck or back or whatever. I was just curious.
For me, I actually didn't have really big breasts. For me, and my partner like does, and they actually got top surgery as well, and it's made such a big difference for them because of their like back pain and just mobility and you know that kind of thing. And for me personally, it didn't really get in the way of any physical things. It just like got in the way emotionally and how I
Mm,
felt about myself and how I viewed myself.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Got it. That makes
That's
sense.
so that's so interesting. It has me thinking a lot, especially since I'm also like have a foot in the fitness world, and
Mhm.
that gets super gendered. And I'm thinking about, one, when you're sharing about your surgery and talking about how you pulled a muscle when you went to try to get back into like getting like active again, right? And I think I'm so curious about what the protocol or what professionals are bringing to the table in terms of like what I hear in recovery, like there needs to be almost some physical therapy, like to help, when you
Mhm.
cut through muscle and stuff like that, healing, but also sort of like a physical therapy or like an easing back into physical activity. And as like top surgery becomes more and more available and more accessible, it just has me think like in that realm, like where could we also be helping people recover better and
Mhm.
quicker and more efficient? And yeah.
Did you have to come up with your own kind of rehab plan, or what did you do did you have to like seek
Well,
out resources or?
I I I luckily I had Kaiser Permanente where I got the surgery and they offered physical therapy. But I had to like reach out to them because
Mm,
I experienced the pain, and then I wrote to them saying I need this. It's not really like part of the plan.
Mm,
Well, after surgery they give you a pamphlet and they tell you like ways to recover, which is basically like don't move and go on like light walks for the first week. But then after like a week or two, it's pretty chill and you should start stretching and moving your body. And actually, this is something for like top surgery. We could do a whole podcast on top surgery resources, but there are actually some surgeons who tell you like, don't lift your arms above your shoulders for like 6 months, because that'll stretch the scars. And the reason they say that is because they care a lot about like the aesthetics of like how your chest looks, how it heals. And then the other side of that is like, you must stretch your arms, otherwise you're going to lose like mobility in that area. You're going to really, really hurt some of those muscles and joints. And, you know, by doing that, yes, your scars are going to stretch, but like, you know, your movement and your body like
is more important.
Yeah.
Totally.
I know. So
Wow,
luckily I was given the resources to say like, continue stretching, continue like slowly gaining that mobility back, because I don't really care if my scars stretch, you know. I'd rather have movement.
Yeah, totally. Wow, that's super valuable.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's like two sides of it, you know. But that's the weird, you know, because, you know, a lot of gender affirming surgery, it's all plastic surgery. And a lot of the roots of plastic surgery is like aesthetics and making your body like, you know, the traditionally beautiful and all this stuff. So it's an interesting, intersection.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, well, we can move on to a different topic now, but that was really interesting. So thank you for just being willing to share, you know, openly. So recently I know you got into Chinese medicine and acupuncture. I'm super curious to hear more about that, because we literally had like a 2-sentence conversation because we were at like a skate session or something.
Yeah.
But can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So I've always been really interested in Chinese medicine. I grew up having like a Chinese medicine doctor, and my mom would make some medicine for me, and it was just always part of like my upbringing in Taiwan. And then I came to the States and got into skateboarding. My body would hurt a lot. And then I found an acupuncturist that I really, really love. And I've been going to her for about like a year and a half now. And
is she Chinese?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I just like, I don't know why. I just want to know.
It's actually
not to
funny.
Invalidate, but I'm just curious, you know?
Is this the woman you sent me to?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Linda Wu.
Love her.
Love her.
Is she from like Asia, or is she from here?
She grew up in China and then moved to the States when she was young.
Gotcha.
So she's Chinese American. It's funny that you ask, because when I asked my friend Monica for like a recommendation for where to go, right? And so I got recommended to go to a community acupuncture place, and I just like made a random appointment, and they just gave me whoever. And it was a white woman, and it was all chill, but I felt like where are the Asians at, you know? Where are the Chinese people? And I looked at their website, I looked up all of the practitioners, and I found like the one Chinese person that worked there, and I saw that she had the same last name as me, so I was like, yes. But I chose her, and she was amazing. And then later I found out that we actually don't have the same last name, it's just the same phonetics. It's Wu. We have two different types of Wu characters.
Yeah.
Actually, there's more than two, but what's yours?
Mine is, I don't know how to describe it.
Does it have a mouth on top?
Yes.
Okay.
The square.
Yeah. We have the same one.
Crazy. And then my grandparents spell it WOO because they were in Hong Kong at the time, and that's how you spell it, Cantonese.
Yeah. It's funny because with you know, Chinese and other last names that aren't that where you don't use like the Roman characters or whatever, it's you can spell it however you want.
Yeah. So we're probably actually related is the conclusion here.
Yes, we are.
Like ancestors.
The Wu dynasty.
Exactly.
Amazing.
I just had to ask about the acupuncture because I don't know. It's just I want to not be biased about it, but then it's like I've gotten acupuncture a bunch, and my mom, who, you know, is Chinese, or she was born in Taiwan, but she has this thing about like, she only goes to this like old Chinese guy for acupuncture. And she like had this like story about like, they need to be this way. And then my other friend who's actually, I think you guys met her, Victoria. She's half Chinese, half Vietnamese, and she's younger. And like, then my mom got acupuncture from her, and she's like, oh, okay, I guess like it's not only, it's like you can be good at it even if you're like under the age of, you know, 70 and you're not from like Asia, you know. Anyways, but yeah. So yeah, continue.
Okay.
So you're now like pursuing it.
So I met Linda Wu. We've been doing acupuncture together, and I've always been interested. So I ask her, like, what are you doing? Like, what is this? Blah, blah, blah. And she's like really down to explain everything and tell me. So in a way, like, she became a mentor to me, even though I didn't tell her, like, can you mentor me? You know, it was just like came naturally. And yeah, I decided I was sort of in a crossroads. I've been working in, you know, art education for a while, in horticulture for a while, and both of the jobs that I had in those departments sort of like ended for many different reasons. And I was like, you know, looking for jobs and having a hard time. And I decided, like, it all clicked when I decided that I wanted to study Chinese medicine. And to become an acupuncturist, you have to go through the school. So I asked Linda, I was like, should I do this? Is it like, what is it like? And I started interviewing her, and she sent me to a lot of other people to interview them about their experiences. And literally everyone is like, do it. It's like the best. Like, I don't regret a thing. And I tell everyone, oh, I'm going to Chinese medicine school. And they're like, oh my God, my auntie's at acupuncture. She's so happy. And, you know, I think it kind of, the philosophy behind Chinese medicine really connects with things that I'm interested in, things that I've already studied, my upbringing. And, you know, it's going to be really rewarding work. It's going to be hard work, learning all of this, but ultimately I care a lot about well-being, about taking care of yourself, about learning about yourself. And, you know, there's such a separation of, you know, us and our bodies and how our bodies work, and, you know, like our relationships with the patterns in nature, and, you know, all of that. So I want to learn it, and then I also want to share it with the community, and just provide affordable healthcare, because that's something that we really need in the States, at least.
And like alternative healthcare, well, alternative to Western medicine. Which like for so long, it just seemed so trusted and ingrained, and no one questioned it. I don't know. Like when I was growing up, it's just like, oh, you're sick, go to the doctor, get pills. And it's like, okay, like the doctor said so, I'll do it. And then it's like, wait, that might not be the best idea, you know?
And the really cool thing, the program I'm doing is actually an integrative medicine school. So we learn Chinese medicine and we learn Western medicine, because if you're going to, you know, practice Chinese medicine in America, it's always good to do an integrative program, because you're going to be treating all kinds of people. You could even treat in a hospital. Like acupuncture is a thing. It's like becoming a thing within the Western medicine world. It's a small thing right now, but I think eventually it will become more and more integrated. And like you said, friend, Kim, you know, you said like, oh, I get sick, just like take these cold medicine pills, you know, instead of like learning about like why you get sick. And it's more than just like getting a pathogen in your body. It's about like your health, what you're eating, like your routine every day. Like, are you getting enough sleep? Are you exercising? You know, like your mental health. It's about your emotions as well. And so it's just like everything relates.
It seems like, well, yeah, you're actually right. Cause I just remember my friend who's an acupuncturist is now like working part-time at Kaiser, like doing acupuncture. But, I feel like with Chinese medicine, and I'm definitely not an expert in medicine at all, but
neither am I.
Like, we'll interview you again in a year when you're
4 years.
Or 4 years. Oh, it's a 4-year program.
Wow, that's what I was going to ask.
Well, that actually makes me feel good, because, you know, that takes a while to learn and master.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So cool.
you're gonna need 4 years of practice of putting needles in people before you put a needle in me. Just kidding. I'd let you do it sooner. It feels like with Chinese medicine and the culture around it, it's more about the whole versus I feel like Western medicine separates, your ailments and your like everything's like compartmentalized.
Mhm.
Whereas again, like I'm not an expert, but I feel like with Eastern medicine, it's about looking at the overview. And then I think the other thing too, which is interesting about like practitioners or whatever you want to call it, doctors, Chinese, Eastern medicine doctors, is that it seems like there's more of a connection to the patient, and it's sort of like a exchange of like energy and healing versus like I'm gonna give this to you and goodbye kind of thing. So it's like you have like like people have a relationship with their acupuncturist, or they're like, if you go to a Chinese doctor and you get like herbs from them, like there's this like ongoing, it's like a person in your life, the way that maybe someone might have with like a hairstylist or something. I don't know.
Yeah, because they're teaching you ways where you can take care of yourself outside of like going to see them. Whereas I feel like, some people would say in Chinese medicine and Eastern medicine, your body is a garden and the doctor is a gardener. And in Western medicine, your body is a machine and the doctor is a mechanic. So that's just like the two viewpoints. And I feel like, yeah, it really makes sense in that way.
Weren't you a gardener, or not a gardener?
I have been. I've been working in horticulture. I've been a gardener. I had to actually stop working full time as a gardener because I was having back pain. But yeah, it's funny because the philosophy behind it is like all about the relationship between our bodies and the environment, and like the patterns within nature are patterns within our bodies. And it's like I studied environmental studies in undergrad. Like
Wow.
I've been working in horticulture. And it's also like an art form. It's finding connections between everything, and like it's not so black and white. And when I decided I want to do Chinese medicine, I felt like it was so random, but it's like totally not random. Like it makes so much sense.
Totally.
Everything in your life like led you up to this point.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah, I feel like something I think about is like my relationship to Western medicine growing up, in which there was like a very small relationship. Ours as kids growing up was like, it wasn't until you're like bleeding out of your head or like you're like puking or like something terrible. And then it was just in urgent care. Like we didn't have primary care physicians, none of that. And so, yeah.
Is that just because you were a skateboarder?
Maybe. I'm sure like being a skateboarder added to me being like, yeah, that's how we do it. Just like rub some dirt on it, keep it moving.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like walk it off, which is terrible. But even as I get older, I find myself really resisting Western medicine and really feeling like this isn't the answer. And I don't remember who it was exactly, but I remember the moment when it really clicked, when somebody was like, yeah, these days you go to a Western medicine doctor, right? And they don't even put their hands on your body. Like they are like, what's going on? You explain it verbally and they write you something and then they're gone. And so when somebody said that, I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Like we're not
such a disconnect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And just the politics of medicine and Western.
I really think that like the future is an integrative version of both.
Totally.
Because, so many people are like so anti Eastern medicine. Some people are so anti-Western medicine, but they both bring a lot of really good things, and like, have made a lot of good changes and positive changes. So yeah, combo of both would be perfect.
Well, I know like in Taiwan, so my parents practice a form of like energy healing, which I think the more known version is like Japanese Reiki, but they practice a version that's like from Taiwan. And they told me that in hospitals, you have the option of like going to the Eastern medicine wing and then the Western medicine wing. So like, again, integrative, where, yeah, like energy healing isn't gonna be helpful if you're bleeding out your head, but it's gonna make a difference for some things that taking like popping painkillers might not be effective or have like long-term damaging effects for. So you can actually go there and choose, which I think is great too.
Yeah, definitely.
But That's awesome. Ash, do you see like, well, in the fitness world, it seems very like, I mean, I guess my question is like, do you see that being integrated when it comes to like strength conditioning? Because part
Oh
of,
my gosh.
I think when it comes to fitness and like when you go to the elite level of like strength and performance, it does require sort of like not natural like things. Like, I don't know, like, I'm just curious because like I feel like people who are in the world of like taking their body to the most elite level requires like supplements and things that are like maybe not found in nature.
Mhm.
Do you feel like there's like opportunity or growth for people to like be able to like fine tune their bodies and be the strongest version of yourself and do it in a way that is organic or natural or whatever it is, you know?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. It's more about like how much time do you have right now? No, I'm just kidding. No, and as I'm hearing y'all speak on all this, like what I'm really thinking about, what's coming to mind is preventative work. And I feel like, especially again in Western society, we don't talk about preventative measures that like prevent us from getting into like the doctor's office, right? And so I think especially like strength and conditioning and like overall physical activity and fitness are something that we only talk about in really one dimension. And we talk about it like for aesthetic, you want to look a certain way. And we're starting to have more of a conversation and getting like that it's really adding to the human body and longevity, especially since we're living in a world right now that is way more sedentary than ever. So I think that absolutely, like we just talked about, like more integrative and really having kind of this whole health perspective. I've been talking a lot about this whole health with a lot of people kind of in my fitness world and really wanting to contribute to people's overall well-being and how fitness and strength training is such a um, like such a crucial part of our health. The human body, like I believe, absolutely wants to be moved and ran and, you know, do all the things you do as like a young kid. If you watch a young person kind of navigate the world, they're like skipping around, they're like jumping on top of things. And I think that the human body wants to be moving and wants to be used. And so I think it's so true that when you don't use it, you lose it. And I think but also on top of that, we got to think, like Jess said earlier, sleep. Number one is sleep, first and foremost. That's when your body is healing the most. And then number two is nutrition. What are we putting into our body? Like Jess just talked about it earlier too. And then on top of that, I think, yeah, using the body like it's meant to be used. I think the most important thing to remember about the human body is that it is going to be the best thing at whatever you have it do. So especially again, we have a lot of folks these days working 9 to 5, sitting a lot of our day. And so I think that when you do that, you're going to be the best sitter on the planet. Right. And I think the human body shuts down in other ways if we're not using it in ways. So, you know, so I think about just how you just talked about, you know, when you were gardening or when you were doing more horticulture parts of like your work and you're getting back pain. To me, I'm already thinking like your body's telling you like, hey, I want some love in these areas. And of course, like I'm not a doctor and there could be other things going on, but I think a lot of times like the body wants to be strengthened and wants to be loved. And so, you know, and I think that's huge for the physical sort of ability of bodies, but I also think there's a really mental part of like strength and conditioning or just like fitness in general and moving your body and the endorphins. And it's actually supposed to be really enjoyable, which it is, right? But I don't think we prioritize that a lot. Or we've created a certain story around what it is and who's it for.
Yeah, I feel like for a long time, well, maybe if you look at the Western medicine or Western culture approach, it's like, let's add more things. Let's invent more things. Like, let's drink more products that are going to help us get through the day to make up for the fact that we've only slept 4 hours.
Yeah.
And so I feel like ideally the healthier, more sustainable future or a more holistic, you know, approach is like, to remove things, not add more things in, and like bring life back to the basics of like, all right, sleep, eat, sun, like movement.
Sun is real.
Like sun walking. Like, it just like, I don't know, the whole, like we're in the Bay Area. So like there's tech and innovation, but just some of the things I'm just like, we don't need to invent more things that gets someone from A to B without using their body. Like the so hoverboards or whatever, you know, like the scooter, like whatever. I mean, I guess like I see the value for some of that stuff, but I'm just like, how about people just walk or ride your bike or skate, you know, like not with a motor on it. 'Cause those 5 minutes can actually invest in your health and your body. And in the meantime, everyone's trying to invent all these things that like reduces like
Yeah.
I don't want to like put anyone down, but I'm just like, yeah, like you literally don't need to leave. If you like are an engineer or just whatever, you live in the Bay Area, you could literally not leave your seat, like, and have all the things. Like, I guess going to the bathroom would be the only thing. I'm sure there's like, I just think of that movie, like Idiocracy. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it's like
Yeah.
the future of humanity is like where you're, you know, the recliner that you watch TV on is also a toilet and you don't even have to get up. It's just like all right there. I'm just like, that is not, you know, it's not healthy, but
Totally.
so I guess that's why skateboarding is nice, because I think even we talk about this all the time, but even if you aren't trying to skate to become a pro or, you know, focus so much on progression, it could just be like the few minutes in your day where you like actually get your heart rate up because you're pushing from like the parking lot to your office or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah.
You get your heart rate going in that sense. And I think that's kind of also like the future of skateboarding is seeing it as a tool to like allow people to move and get like some physical activity in that is really different than other sports or other fitness activities.
Yeah.
Totally.
And, you know, the ability to move your body is a privilege.
Yeah.
And, you know,
100%.
that's why we thank skateboarding all the time, you know, because it's a gift. It's a gift to be able to move and, you know, have the ability to do a sport or even just walk. And so,
Totally.
yeah.
Totally.
Awesome. Is there anything else you guys want to cover before we go to the last few questions? We do have these last two questions. Is there anything that like you want to talk about, Jess, or share with the world?
That's a big question, right?
I mean, the last two questions might actually address that.
What are the last two questions?
So the second to last question is, what advice would you give your younger self? So professionally and internally. What does internally mean? Ash wrote this question.
Yeah. So professionally, I think just like you said, like you've just even surprised yourself with being on a journey into like Chinese medicine and start this new chapter, and how looking back, actually all the things have totally been the perfect road to here. So I think sometimes looking back, like we feel like maybe we could have saved our younger self or helped our younger self at least have like peace of mind, or just like know to enjoy the ride a little bit more or whatever it is. So I think on a professional level, like with what you've done and what you've turned into like work along the way, and still have gotten to like explore you and be self-expressed, but then like just internally as you went through your process of like finding Jess and getting to like create this thing called Jess and enjoy it, like what would the advice be to your younger?
I think that you just made the perfect advice. If I could just record what you just said and then just
copy
send
paste
it to myself.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
is that really answer allowed?
I want to hear you try to like you regenerate it for yourself or recreate it.
I mean, okay. I feel like professionally, I've always been kind of like pretty good at doing what I love. And, you know, and I've been good at expressing myself and, you know, it's been sort of a privilege that I've never had to like work for like pure survival. I've always been able to like get a job and keep a job and be able to afford my rent and pay for food. You know, so I've been able to have like the privilege of having a hobby and, you know, doing creative things outside of like my job, you know, because sometimes it's tiring to like do stuff outside of your job, you know. So I've been able to like make music, start making zines, doing drawings, like hang out with friends, like enjoy my life, you know. But in terms of like emotional stuff, I feel like, you know, if I'm gonna give myself advice from, you know, back then, I would say like, you know, I was like super emo. I'm still really emo. I'm still like learning ways to like cope with trauma. And, you know, I would probably just I'd rather just like talk to my younger self in real life if that's possible. I mean, that would totally be weird and like super sci-fi, and it would probably change my entire life. And I probably wouldn't exist as me now, but you know,
That'd be a
that's
trip.
also like a lesson, you know, like all of our experiences, whether like positive, negative, whatever, like it informs who we are today. And I would love to give myself advice, but it would change who I am now. And but of course, like with my brain, I'm constantly thinking like, what could I've done different? Like constantly comparing myself to other people. I have anxiety, like I have stress. I would love to change like things about myself and how I did things. But, you know, to answer your question, I would just say like have a journal, like just journal. And because that's not something I started doing until I got older. And it really, really helped me to like get all my feelings down and to sort of like have a way to process everything that's going on.
Yeah.
So journaling makes a difference for dealing with anxiety and stress for you?
For me, yeah.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because it's like a way to sort of unload it in a way that's like safe and sort of
Yeah. I would write letters to myself.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Do
And
you still do that?
I still do that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I did it a lot
Amazing.
in college, and it's kind of funny because I went through a lot. It was a very emotional time, and when I graduated, I threw out all of my journals. It was like 15 of them that I
Oh,
wrote
man.
throughout 4 years,
Do
which
you
is
regret
like
that?
I regret it so hard.
I bet it was cleansing though. Like
It was so cleansing.
there had to
but
be a reason why you threw it away. Yeah?
I think I just felt over it. I was like, I'm over this. I've grown so much. Like, there's no point keeping these journals. Like, you know, I've grown. But now I'm like, damn, I want to like read about what I was feeling because like part of me forgets. You know, you forget how you're feeling at that time, and it could probably help me now. Like my past. Honestly, I feel like the question should be like, what would your younger self tell you? Or like what would your younger self give you advice now?
Oh wow, I like
That's
that.
my question for you.
Dang,
That's a good question.
that is a great question.
Answer that question. On a side
Can you
note, before we answer that question, I think there's like a show on Netflix where people like they find their old high school diaries and they read them in like a live audience setting. I like feel like I've watched a few episodes. It's hilarious.
Is it like a open mic setting?
Yeah, exactly. And like they get on stage in front of hundreds of people and literally read their deepest, darkest private thoughts from like age 15, and it's hilarious.
Wow.
Like and it's like also really freeing, I'd imagine. But anyways, it's like full circle. So yeah, what would your younger self tell you? What age? 15? 16? 14?
I think whatever comes to mind. Are y'all like pending on that right now? Are you like sitting with it?
I'm thinking.
Ash,
Mm-hmm.
you're ready.
I definitely, it just like hit me. And those questions, I'm usually like, oh gosh. So I think my younger self would remind me right now that like life is about playing, and remember to like, one, like give yourself grace and like be gentle with yourself, and like don't forget that like play as much as you can.
Like, don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah. Or like just bring, yeah. Or just, how do I even articulate it? Yeah, maybe, I mean, it's easy to say don't be hard on yourself, but like also like remember how powerful and how awesome you like truly are, and like just hold on to that and let that be like your anchor, you know? Because I think as I get older, like the perfectionist in me wants to come out more and more, and like just want to do everything so right that I take on, and remembering like that
you lose some of the freedom by not
Yeah.
just by like start like it's like you're caring more when you're younger you don't care as much, and so
Yeah.
like it's more freeing. It's
Yeah,
like
or
kids are like free, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I think a lot of that authenticity comes out in like you being uniquely who you are and your experiences when you're not tied down to like having to like be perfect at whatever it is you're trying to do or contribute to. So, and I think play is one of the best states for creativity.
I also think when you're younger, you're not expected to be an expert at anything or perfect at
Right.
anything. So there isn't that pressure.
Yeah.
Like you can't be a master at anything because you literally have just been on the planet for, 15 years versus like by the time you're 40, it's like, all right, you should probably know something around. Or
Right.
that's the expectation we put on ourselves or the
Right.
society puts on ourselves.
Right. Yeah.
I feel like mine would be similar. I think as a kid, I was just a lot more like we would just do like my friends and I were pretty like not crazy, but we would just do so much like out there stuff. We would like make music videos. And this was like before YouTube, honestly. Like
Yeah.
if the internet was what it was today, like I don't know, we might be YouTube stars. Just kidding. They're super embarrassing though. We have some of the files still because it was digital video, but it was like tape, like mini DV. And we would literally film, like we reenacted like we weren't even trying to be cool. It was like a whole new world, Aladdin. And we'd like have a carpet, like a magic carpet in the background and like just I don't know, we were just bored and like didn't care and we like had to get out all the energy. So I feel like back then it was about doing things just for the sake of doing them, like not because there wasn't an audience, like there
Right.
wasn't YouTube. It was like let's just make this and watch it ourselves and like laugh and watch it 10 times in a row, and like that was literally it. It was just
I'm gonna
like
need to see this. Yes.
I might have to dig up the files.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, we're gonna need to see a little clip of that.
We'll have to take a trip down memory lane and see your super long hair, Jess.
Yes.
Because like I've only met you with short hair. Like you never had
Yes.
longer hair
Mhm.
in the time that I've known you. But yeah, I think just like doing things for like no reason.
Or just like for you and for your
Yeah.
friends. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Mhm.
doing things, not because there's an expectation or some
Mhm.
sort of mark or measure to hit, but literally because we felt like it. Like that's literally like my teenage years in a nutshell.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna remember that every day for the rest of my life.
So true.
That's amazing. I do want to talk about your zine a little bit because we didn't quite touch on that. Yeah.
Zines.
And as we can see in the background there. Well, I was actually thinking when you're talking about journaling, do you feel like that was sort of like a natural evolution because you were sort of putting your creativity down on paper, like pen to paper? And then like how did the zine come about? Like what inspired you to start it? And like how did you even, because I think a lot of people have ideas and they want to, but maybe they get stuck by like, oh, it's not going to be good enough. Like what was the process for you
Yeah. So
actually having the zines?
technically I've been making zines like my whole life, but I just didn't realize that there was like a community of people who make them and trade them and all that kind of stuff. So because I've always loved making my own little books of like drawings and things like that. But when I moved to the States in college, there was like actually a class on Asian Americans and zine culture. I never was able to take the class because it got filled up, but we like had
This
a
was in
zine
college?
fest. Yeah, it was in college.
Oh wow.
That's awesome.
And we had a zine festival like within the small college, and I kind of like I didn't really like make zines then, but I was exposed to them, and I was exposed to like how zines started, and DIY culture, punk culture, that kind of thing, and then that's when I was like, okay, I want to like make zines, like zines. So the first zine that I actually made was just like doodles of like my feelings or like queer stuff, random stuff. And I would just like make it for myself. I never really like made copies or tried to like sell them or share them or anything until I moved to the Bay Area and I went to the San Francisco Zine Fest, and there were like so many people. There were like 200 tablers with their own zines and like zine
That's
distros with more people's zines from all over the world. I was like blown away by this community, and I like got so many zines from so many people and felt so connected through all of this storytelling, all of this sharing. And I was really drawn to zines that explored like queer identity and like identities of people of color and like Asian identities, mixed identities, like just things that I care about and things that I relate to as a person and within my own identities. So I wanted to do that as well. So that's kind of how I started, like with the zines that I make, because people make zines about anything. Like you can do literally anything, like make a zine with photos of like trash that you found that week, or like make a zine about like how to compost, or like like anything. Like with any books, you can find a book on literally any topic done in any single way, except the only difference with zines is that you do it yourself as opposed to like sending it to a publisher or whatever. So the first zine I did was with my friend Lee, who and
Shout out to Lee.
shout out to Lee. They're like a super amazing poet. I don't know if you guys know that, but they are a really amazing poet, and just an amazing person and friend. And I call them my sibling. And we just like sat down one day and we're drinking tea. And I put the recorder. I set my phone to record, and I just recorded our whole conversation from the day. And we were just talking, just like having a conversation one-on-one about like our identities, about our queerness, about Taiwan, about food, about literally everything. And then we transcribed some of the little bits of our conversations and like put it into a zine, and we did like little doodles in between the pages and little poems and little things like that, and like emails that we've sent to each other. So in a way it was sort of like a personal diary of the both of us, but like written to other people who also care about that identity, and with the hopes that people would like relate to it if they didn't have chosen family or friends. And so, and people really really loved it. Like we got really really good feedback, and people saying like, I'm so happy, it made me so happy to hear that someone else feels the same way that I feel. So that kind of like started all the zines that I do. So
was that the very first iteration of what then became Mixed Rice Zines? Or
yeah, that was like the first iteration. And the reason
the name behind, I was
the
gonna
name
ask.
is because Lee did this little doodle of themselves and then like wrote mixed rice on top. And it was sort of like a play on words, because like who doesn't love rice, who doesn't love mixed rice, and also like we were talking a lot about our identities as mixed race people. So yeah, I thought that would be a sweet name for kind of the zines that I work on. But anyway, that zine's title was Rice Keeps It Nice, and which
awesome.
is very funny
So great.
and true. And then I started, I made that zine. It was my voice. And I was like, I want to hear other people's voices. So I would put out flyers, with a basic topic. Like, I want to make a zine. I want to hear about people who are queer and mixed, and I want to hear about their experiences. So I made a zine. I collected stories, whether that's like written stories, poetry, visual art, comics, photography. People sent me stuff like left and right. And
how did you? What platform? I'm just curious. Like, what was the call out? Was it like online, or was it like in person?
So it was mostly online. I printed out a few flyers and I would post them around, but honestly, most of the people are using the internet.
This crazy thing called the internet.
Yes.
Were they people from all over, or just in the Bay Area? Or
I would say most of the people who respond are within like major cities in America.
Gotcha.
So like New York, LA, Bay Area. And then, people everywhere in between. I've had people send me stuff from countries outside of the States, Canada, Australia, Japan. So it's been really amazing. Honestly, the best part of making these zines is to hear these stories and collect these stories, because these zines would not exist without the people behind them. Like people are willing to take the time to email me their work and be willing to share their work with the world, and not being afraid to just like be who they are. And it's really apparent in all of the submissions.
Mhm.
So I was really taken aback by that, and I just want to keep making them because it's just incredible hearing people's stories. So that, the I work on Everybody Skates zine, and that also started with me collecting stories of skaters. And the very first version of Everybody Skates is called Everybody Blades, but no one knows about it because I made the zine and no one cared.
wait. What was the exact title? Say it
The
again.
exact title is Everybody Blades.
Okay, I thought you said because you said something right after that. It was like everybody blades, but nobody knows or something like that.
No one cares.
But it was like I was like, wait, hold on.
There was no audience because
There was
not
no
everybody was
audience.
blading. Everybody
Oh.
was skateboarding, not blading.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ugh,
Nobody blades? Is that
I
the more
should
accurate
I know.
title?
Some people blade.
Like I blade.
Some people.
Some people blade.
There's a few.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll make a comeback.
I don't know. The very first version was Everybody Blades, but whatever. And then I made Everybody Skates #1. And that actually, half of the people in the zine are rollerbladers and half of them are skateboarders. And I did interviews, and they're all interviews of skateboarders, rollerbladers. And then from there, it kind of just like morphed into only skateboarding, mostly because I kind of fell more in love with skateboarding, and I interviewed like literally all the rollerbladers I knew in the first copy. So I'm sure I can find more. I'm sure if I like put another one out, like more people will contact me from everywhere else. Because I have a little bit more followers now compared to when I first started. Because when I first made Everybody Blades, I didn't even have Instagram. I didn't even have a smartphone. Like I literally got a smartphone like 2 years ago. And that changed my life. I don't know what I was doing before that.
The internet changed your life.
Did you have a MySpace?
I had a MySpace, but I kind of stopped using that because of Facebook, and I don't even use Facebook. I just use Instagram.
Right.
And Instagram's weird. Like I feel like it's sort of like an online business card in a way, at least for me, because I'm able to like share my work and be like, hey, come check this out, or check this out about my work. But yeah, Instagram weirdly gives me a lot of anxiety because I'm constantly comparing myself to other people. But at the same time, it's also really inspiring because I follow a lot of artists who make work about like loving yourself and taking care of yourself. And it's nice to like scroll through and just like see a piece of work that says like, just take it slow, or like remember this, so that's nice. It's like a little bit of everything. It's kind of chaotic. I'm sure everyone feels that way. But
I heard that the move forward is to take away likes because of, I don't know, whatever reasons, but to have it be more about self-expression than comparing and judging. But
yeah, definitely.
Based on everything that you've shared with us, I feel like so much of your passions and your culture have been like really nurtured in the Bay, right? Like skateboarding, zines, finding a community of folks who are non-binary and having support around things like the physical transformation. I guess I'm curious because we're all living in the Bay, and I'm just like, obviously I love the Bay Area. I like grew up here. I lived in Southern California for 10 years and came back. What do you guys, this is a question for both of you guys, like what do you guys think it is about the Bay Area, the physical I don't know, the geographical location or the culture that has it be so special? And I guess I'm curious to ask you, Jess, because seems like a lot of the community and these hobbies, or not even just hobbies, but like you're really like your life and your lifestyle like was nurtured, like I said, here in the Bay Area. It's like, what do you just, I guess your personal opinion, like what do you think it is about the Bay that makes it like so special?
I think there's just like a lot of different kinds of people here. And I don't know what it is about the Bay. People just, I mean, there's a lot of bad stuff about the Bay, but the good stuff is like there's so many people just doing like their thing. And like within like the culture of zines and music, DIY, do it yourself kind of stuff, like there's so many people just doing it themselves and like coming together and sharing. And there's a lot of different identities and expressions that are being shared, and it's not just like one version, you know. So I think that's what's special about it. And like the geographically, I think it's because a lot of people, there's like, you know, California has so many immigrants. So I just think there's a lot of different voices and a lot of ways for those voices to be shared.
Yeah.
Totally.
Do you have an answer? Or?
Yeah, I just have to chopstick. Sorry. I agree. I think the Bay is a magical place. I mean, just speaking from my own experience and somebody that's like grown up in Southern California, like I, as like a white girl in Southern California, kind of presenting to the world as I do, also felt like an outsider. Like I felt like the way I wanted to navigate life or what I thought life is supposed to look like or how I wanted to experiment with life, I wasn't feeling like it was safe to do it down there, or that I would be judged, or I wasn't seeing other people challenge the way that life could be done. And I found myself going to school up here, UC Santa Cruz, and then kind of getting jobs here in the Bay and really loving the Bay because of the access to so many different types of people and stories and just culture and yeah, the ability to not sound crazy when you are taking on all these different things and really trying to make what you wanted to in your life. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about, Jess, like really getting to explore, like, what is it that you want to do? And if you have to work a good majority of your life, like, what do you want to wake up like wanting to do? And like, what are you going to love to do? And I felt like the Bay really was an environment that I could do that. I feel like I meet people that are like going to school to be like an engineer, but like also deliver pizza and also like create art on the side, and like just the combination of the way people like bring in income or do a career, or just the combination of people or person you get to be, I feel like it's a lot more limitless. And like you said, there's definitely things we could problematize about the Bay. And but so far the Bay has been a place where I feel like I really could feel comfortable and explore like who I am and what do I want to make this thing called life look like. So,
Yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to turn this into an advertisement for the Bay, but more people should move here. I mean, more of people that we want should move here. Yeah, no, I think it's just like after leaving and coming back, there's something unique about here where the culture is about being yourself and celebrating yourself and being unique and not fitting into some other standard or some idea of how life should be lived. And I think that that's what has made it such a like culturally rich place, and also what makes it attractive for people today to come here. So I hope that like that culture continues to expand and grow. And I think, you know, whether it's skateboarding or art or music, like I see that happening. So I'm like excited about that. And obviously Skate Like a Girl SF Bay is like what brought us together. So I think that'll continue and I'm excited about that. Just had to, you know, give a little Bay shout out, Bay love.
yeah,
Bay
that's
love.
a great question.
Yeah. You know how they have those like tourism ads that are like
Mm.
paid for by the state or like the city? That's our next sponsor.
Right here, we're gonna plug them in right here.
Yeah. Bay Area. Although I don't think the Bay Area needs to do any advertising. Like
Yeah.
people are coming here a lot. Doesn't need
Yeah.
any help.
When you were like, people come, and I was like, oh, I already have so much road rage.
I
with
meant
traffic.
like skaters to come visit because there's not that many like there's a skate scene that's growing here, but I would love for more skaters in our community to come and visit and, you know, kind of come see like what's going on here.
Mm.
So anyways, all right, last question.
All right. Last question for you, Jess, is what would you like to be acknowledged for? And I know we talked about this a little bit earlier, so I'd love to hear any of it. in all of it?
That question brings my anxiety level up. Like we talked about earlier. I don't know. I guess I'd just like to be acknowledged for being me, whoever I am. Yeah, I went back to Taiwan recently last week and I found like all of this artwork that I drew as a child. And earlier we were talking about how like, you know, our younger selves are inspiring our older selves to just do what we love for the heck of it and like not care about being perfect. And I could totally see that in my own artwork then. And I was comparing it to my artwork now and I'm like, yeah, my artwork now is good, but like not as good as this, you know? And like, you know, like it's just like totally like, I don't know, the drawings I was doing, I could just imagine myself just going for it. Like I didn't have to like make it perfect with pencil and then like trace it perfectly with my pen, you know, because the work I do now is like I color within the lines, that kind of thing. And so I don't know, like, you know, my artwork now is different from it is then. I cannot replicate the beautiful drawings of my inner child, but I still see a little bit of it coming out within the work that I do within, you know, the drawings, the zines, the music, the skating. I guess, I don't know. I just like to be acknowledged for like finding the childhood love within everything and like not having
Yeah.
to be so serious.
That's
All right.
awesome.
Can I acknowledge you?
Yes.
Do
Well,
it.
I mean, everything you just said is why, like, to me, you're really inspiring and interesting too. Like, obviously, I've learned a lot tonight and I've known you for a while now. So just being someone who is continuously like true to yourself in being able to like not move past, but like even if there's anxiety or stress or perfectionism or whatever it is, like you're someone who has been able to set that aside or whatever you're going to do with that and still go for it, like draw, like make music, skate,
Drop
and
in.
just dropping in, right? um and I think that, I mean, I acknowledge you for being someone who has like stayed true to like your inner child or your kind of purest self, because that is so important in the world. You know what I'm saying? Like having people live life that way is such a opportunity for other people, whether they're younger or older. Like anyone that you interact with has the opportunity to see you or be around you and potentially like consider living life that way for themselves. And even if they don't, like you may have opened up a door or a possibility for them just by you being you, you know? So I think that that's something that I want to encourage all of us. Like you inspire me definitely with skating. Like I'm always inspired by, I'm like, what is Jess doing? Let me try to like learn that. Um, but like you are that for me, and I think I'm sure you're that for so many other people that I don't know. Actually I do know because they always show up to Skate Like a Girl events. We're like, hey, how did you hear about us? And
True,
they're like, oh, Jess told me
true.
about it. Like literally I can't, there's people who invite people and then there's people who like Jess's list of people that came and like you're not even there, so they clearly are like inspired by you to like do whatever they got to do to show up at our events like on their own. And that just is such a measure and a demonstration of like who you are for like your community, our community, like just people that we haven't even met yet. So I definitely want to acknowledge you for being true to yourself and not letting the things that stop all of us, right, our inner dialogue and our judgments and our negative self-talk, like not let that stop you from continuing to like live life and try things and fail and get back up, and then along the way produce so much amazing, you know, things. Like I don't even want to call it content, but like your art, your zines, your skating, your music, like you've created so many things that are now contributing to other people. So that is like you can't measure that, you know. So yeah, that's what I want to acknowledge you for. And hopefully that fulfilled on what you wanted to be acknowledged for.
Thank you, because it was really, I got awkward.
Is that because you felt like that totally, you got that acknowledgement from Kim?
Mm-hmm.
It might be hard to see it because you're you, but that's
Mhm.
like what I see, you know, and having known you and
Yeah.
your impact in the world is really like what I'm pointing to. And I know you're not doing it to necessarily impact, but you're doing it like for yourself or for your younger self. And that's why it's so like influential, you know, that's why it really speaks to people, like your
Mhm.
art and your zines and everything. Because I think we all wish that we could be more true to our original younger self before we had all these like layers of
Yeah.
society or trying to be whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like as you get older, you build up like different ideals, but
Yeah. Yeah. The one thing I hate the most about being an adult is like someone will ask you like, "How are you?" And then you're just like, "Good." Like it's like none of those words even like, you know, like it was just like empty words. Like if someone's going to ask you, "How are you?" Like, "Okay, do you have an hour?" So I can tell you how I Yeah. But you know, I find myself doing that to other people because it's like, "How are you?" actually just means hello instead of like asking how the person is.
Yeah, totally.
it's like
Yeah.
a automatic machinery
Mhm.
like greeting. It's like a
Yeah.
answering machine back in the day
Yeah.
when there used to be answering machines.
What do you think we could say instead? Because I agree with you. I've
I've
learned to
definitely
like
caught myself a few times and I'm like, do you like, are you asking me how I am? Or are you, or I'll just go for it. I'll be like, actually, I'm like not great. Or like, I don't know, I feel weird today, you know, that kind of thing. Cause I'll catch myself and I'll see like, I'm good, but I'm not.
Yeah. It's better to just be honest and say how you are versus trying to like do the pinball like automatic answer.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's why like check-in questions are really great. Like when we do our programs, like it's not like how are you? It's all right. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel today mentally? Or what's your favorite sauce or like whatever, because it's actually like it's engaging and interesting and it's not this like autopilot answer, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But all right, well, it's up to us to stop asking people how are
That's why I want to know what can we say instead? Because
on
I
a scale of 1 to
agree.
10, how are you doing today?
Hey,
mentally and physically.
hello. On a scale of 1 to 10, how are you feeling? How are you feeling mentally and physically today?
Yeah,
I'm gonna try that out this week.
Or you can carry around like a little booklet of different emojis and
hold them up.
pick one.
Ooh,
How are
I
you
like that.
today? And then like
maybe I could just be like, hey Jess, good to see you. Like show me a facial expression that represents you at this very moment. What would happen there? What would you do with that one?
it would just be my reaction to the question.
Which is laughing.
Which was laughing and smiling. Because that's how I feel right now.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
One that I've asked some of my friends or teammates is like, if I actually want to know something about them or feel connected to them and we don't have like an hour to chat, I would ask like, you know, either like, what are you creating today? If we're about to like, I don't know, have lunch or go into a meeting or something, or like, what are you committed to today? Or like, what are you committed to for this meeting or this event or this party or whatever it is? Because then they actually think and it's like, oh, I'm committed to having fun at this event, or I'm committed to like, I don't know, not being shy at this setting with a lot of people or whatever it is. Or I'm committed to going home and being in bed by 9 p.m., which is a common one for Ashley because she had to get up at 3 a.m.
Wow.
So,
or you could ask, how did you sleep last night?
How many hours of sleep?
I
how many hours of sleep did you get?
I love that.
I just talked to the Kristen and Adrian from Quell because I was on their podcast and we literally got to this question. We're like, we should ask this question all the time.
Yes.
How many hours did you sleep?
Yeah.
That's so informative.
How are you? Because it's so much more
informative.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and here's the other thing I'll throw in the wrench, which this is going to be, again, a whole nother podcast or episode we do, but it's not actually about how many hours you get. It's about the quality of sleep you get.
How much deep sleep did you get?
Yeah. What was the quality of your sleep like last night?
Mhm.
On a scale of 1 to 10.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or like, I'm all about the numbers. I'm like, how many times did you wake up during sleep last night?
Oh,
Because there's some nights where like I wake up a lot and I'm like, that was horrible sleep. Like
Yeah.
it was not quality.
Like,
yeah.
did you dream? And if you did, what did you dream about? And what do you think about it?
Oh my gosh. This might be edited out, but I have to tell you all. I woke up this morning for the first time ever in my life and I was bawling
What?
from the dream I was having.
Wow, that's
In my
really
dream, my partner had died.
Oh wow.
And I woke up like absurd crying.
Were you
Wow.
crying in your sleep?
I
or
was,
did you
I
wake
woke up and I was like,
then you cried?
like, you know, when
Like
you're
and
like,
your face was wet?
yeah. And like
Wow.
my partner woke up and was like, oh my God, what's wrong? What's wrong? And I was like, I don't even know what. And I'm like,
Wow.
crying. It was wild. I've like heard of that happening
I've
before, but like
never
I was in the dream. So when I woke up, I was like still there. And then I was like, oh, I'm
and
not
like
there
literally
anymore.
like tears
Yeah.
on
I
your
was still
face.
like
That's
upset.
amazing.
Anyways.
That just means that you love your partner a lot, and that's beautiful.
It's great, yeah. But I like couldn't remember any details other than that. All I knew is that like I knew the real reason why they had died, and I couldn't tell anyone. And then the other was that had died.
Did he feel really special? Because I feel like he should feel really special. If you're waking up and you had a nightmare and you're
I was
crying,
like upset.
like he should be like, "Wow, I love you too."
Yeah. I think it landed that way. Anyways, I had to tell you all. I totally just realized
That's a new one. I've never heard that before. I mean, I've never experienced that. Have you, Jess? Waking up in tears?
No,
I've never had it
not
before.
to that extent, but I've definitely felt the same emotion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had dreams about like close family members like dying or having some tragedy and like being really panicked about it, but definitely not to the point where it was so real that my body like produced tears.
Yeah. It's wild. I don't recommend it.
So
anyways, long story
quality
short
last
is
night,
all about
not good.
quality.
Okay, so on that note, we should go home and go to sleep.
Eventually, yes.
All right, cool. Well, Jess, thank you so much for just taking the time to chat with us and being willing to share, you know, your story and your experiences. I imagine that there's a lot of people who can relate or can be inspired, and that's really our hope for, you know, creating this platform is for people to, you know, connect on different experiences, and the goal really is for all of us to feel a little bit less alone. Thank you again. Is there any last words either of you guys want to share?
I just thank you. Just piggyback on what Kim said. Thank you so much for coming, Jess. I know that it really took something for you to get to be, you know, center stage like this. So thank you for doing that.
Yeah, thanks for creating the space for me to say all of the words that I did not plan to say.
Those are the best ones. Usually.
Awesome.
Usually.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you, Jess. Thanks, you to
Jess.
everyone who's listening. Thank you everyone for tuning in and watching or listening, however, you know, you're digesting all of this. And we look forward to connecting with our listeners in the next time. So thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.